Hi, everybody. Welcome in. Thanks for coming on board for another one of our conversations. The minor league baseball season continues in full force into the second half of the season for area teams, the Greenville Drive among them, and a couple of guys who have been calling their games for a really long time on MILB TV, and the audio stream kind of join us. That's Dan Scott on the far right of your screen, Tom Van Hoy to Dan's left. Guys, thanks so much for coming on board. Great opportunity for us not only talk about the Drive and some of the highlights you've seen this season or in recent years, but kind of get folks to know you guys a little bit better. And let's start out, Dan, about you. I know native of Williamson, West Virginia, I think on the Tug River, and got here to the upstate late 90s, right around the turn of the century. Tom, I know you've got the state of Kansas in your background before arriving here roughly a couple of decades ago, maybe a little bit more than that. But first off, I want you each to kind of take me through your background. Dan, let's start with you as to how it all began and what got you to this point.
Well, I was born as a very young child.
Okay.
Did you want us to go that far back? No. It has been an interesting journey. This year in December, if the Lord allows me to see December, I will be beginning my 40th, I guess technically my 41st year. 40 years ago, I will have started in radio back in Williamson, West Virginia, and it's been a long, strange trip, as the song goes. But it's been a fruitful one. I wouldn't trade it for anything. I have 10 years, 11 years as a sports editor under my belt as well. But radio, broadcasting, and particularly baseball has always been my passion. And I'm blessed to get the opportunity to do it. Tom and I are in our 7th season of doing the Drive games. We both work doing Furman football and men's basketball as well. So, we've been working together in one form or another since 2005, which is hard to really fathom, as I said that out loud.
Yeah, I'm from Pittsburgh, Kansas, right in the southeast corner there, and about 2 hours south of Kansas City, with the University of Kansas. My grandfather was the head football coach of Kansas back in the day when they actually won a few ball games, and had an uncle that was the mayor of Lawrence, so I was destined to go to the University of Kansas. I pretty much started out working with the University of Kansas Sports Network, got a feel for it, and thought, man, oh man, I'm up here watching, at that time, Pete, Big 8 football, going, how cool is this? And decided I wanted to get into broadcasting. I had a degree in business at that time, and so I picked up a master's degree at the University of Tennessee in radio and television, and got into it at the small market level, like Dan and I both began. You never know what you're going to get into when you start there, but I'm so glad I began at that level. Had a great opportunity for 20 years at Pittsburgh State University, Division II power, got to broadcast 5 national championships, and moved out here when my wife got a job 20 years ago with the 1-year competing station there, WYFS, doing weather. So been out here 20 years, and Dan and I hooked up very early on, and we started off doing a lot of high school football, and you've been around here for that time as well, and you know what it's like trying to cover that as well.
Tom, did I hear you say you have a physics degree?
I wish.
Physics. I mean, you ought to hear 2 guys, one from West Virginia, one from Kansas, trying to do math during our game broadcast.
I thought I heard you say physics.
And Pete, when we take all 4 of our shoes off, it's not a good scene.
Yeah. So what did you get your undergrad in? I thought you said physics.
Radio and television communications.
Okay. And then you also got the okay.
Yeah.
You got the grad degree at the Lindsey Nelson School at Tennessee then. Okay.
Go.
All right. Okay. So that makes sense. Dan, I think it's fascinating that Tom was working with a school known as the Gorillas. You don't see that nickname a lot. And now with one of the more interesting names, novel names, I think, in all of minor league baseball, the Greenville Drive, because if you live here, you get it. If you're from outside of there, you don't get it. Dan, your journey, again, included doing newspaper in the Golden Corner of the Upstate when you got here, as I recall. And then on through from the radio talk show aspect of it to a lot of play-by-play Clemson, then Furman, the Drive. How did you connect with the Drive? And then, Tom, I want you to kind of talk about how your journey with the Drive began. But, Dan, let's start out with you.
Well, my connection with the Drive really started when I was doing Clemson baseball on the radio all those years ago, because Clemson would play games here as they still do once or twice a year. So we would come over, obviously, and broadcast those games. And tell you how long ago it's been. Eric Jarenko was the media relations director.
Right.
And we caught up with him one morning after he had been here until about 2 a.m. washing Michigan State uniforms so they could play in clean uniforms the next day. So that's how I originally got in tune with Eric, and before him, or while he was there, but the general manager before him was Mike DeMaine. But when Eric took over as GM and the late Ed Jensen began to have his health problems, unfortunately, his battle with cancer, I had an opportunity in 2017, I think it was, to pinch hit for a game or two. And then when Ed got too sick to continue in the middle of 2018, Eric asked me to step in, and I've been here ever since.
And then,
I tagged along with him.
Gotcha. Yeah. Well, that's okay. That's all right. It's good to have connections, as we all know, and that's fabulous. And you guys are such a great team, and it has to help. I mean, Tom, I would think that it makes it really comfortable for you because you've worked with this guy for so long, and I would think the rapport has been there from the start of the Drive experience and really developed nicely over the years, whether it's doing Drive games or Furman games.
Well, Pete, when I first got out here, I had to knock on doors. First time 20 years that I had to look for a job, and I contacted anybody and everybody in the general area, and WCCP hired me to help out Dan do the high school games. That's kind of how we got into it, and there are a million stories as far as high school, and including scissor lifts at Abbeville, places like that when you can't see from the 30-yard line on in. And so he and I started doing that, and went from there. We did some Clemson baseball together. Dan was doing a lot of network stuff as well. I kind of tagged along on the WCCP side, and just kind of ended up when he needed a little bit of help on the Drive. I live here in Greenville, and I'd been out here as well watching games, and Clemson as well. We came out here a couple of times, and so from that standpoint, we're very fortunate to be able to do about 80 games a year. We do all the college games. Michigan State comes in here as well, the First Pitch Invitational, and we've got the best seat in the house here right behind home plate, and really one of the great venues in all of professional baseball here, the replica of Fenway Park.
And Pete, you've done this as long or longer than I have, so you know how important it is to have chemistry with your broadcast partner, and just to be able to get along, because during especially basketball season, when we're on the road and we're not flying first class most places, we're driving most places. This year was an exception. We had to fly to some places. You spend an awful lot of time together. You're in a car together for hours. Sometimes you're driving 5 hours to do a 3-hour ball game and turning around and driving 5 hours back home. If you don't like each other, that can be a little difficult. But Tom is not only the best broadcast partner that I've ever had, he's become one of my best friends. And that obviously, I think, comes through during the broadcast, because we violate a lot of broadcasting rules. If he makes a mistake, I call him out on it on the air, which you're not supposed to do.
There you go.
Yeah, and we have, when somebody strikes out 4 times in a game, they get the golden sombrero. If one of us makes a mistake, we give out the golden microphone.
There you go.
And so it usually changes hands multiple times over the course of a series. But this guy, to me, has been a godsend. And when you have a broadcast partner like that, I think it comes through on the air. And I believe that people understand when they listen to us, and it probably only takes once or twice. We may not be any good, but we like each other. And I think that comes through on the air. It's legitimate. It's not a put on.
Well, we're the only ones the other day that mentioned Itagata DeVita and Andy Mayberry in the broadcast, I think, across the country, But I think, Pete, too, one of the things is, and you're a play-by-play guy. You've done it at all levels. When I got out here, I was a play-by-play guy, and I had to take what I could get, and that didn't involve being the main guy or anything like that. But what it did do is it gave me an incredible appreciation for what the color analyst does and what the play-by-play broadcaster needs to get into the broadcast and when he needs to get it in. Now, we're all different in how we do it. And here's the way. This is what I have for all my information for the game tonight, and here's what Dan has, his iPad. So I'm old school in that regard. So, we've been around long enough, and can finish each other's sentences and things like that. But I think our approach is we need to inform, we need to educate, and we need to entertain if we can.
To that point, somewhat, I think it's a pretty cool dynamic whether you're doing a minor league team or the many college games. One of the connections you have that I don't think a lot of the general audience appreciates is how many parents and friends and family are listening in. And when you think about with a minor league team, you've got family and friends really all over the Western Hemisphere because so many of the players on these minor league teams are from outside of the U.S. So start, Dan, and then Tom, you can finish. I mean, do you appreciate the fact that you're telling the stories of a bunch of sons of moms and dads and grandsons and that kind of thing?
Yeah, you do, especially when the grandmothers bring you cookies to the press box, like Chase Sugart's grandmother did a couple of years ago before he got traded into the Pirates system, I believe, Pete, and is now pitching with the big league
Pitched
club.
last night,
Yeah, but it is it is something that we latched onto, or I latched onto very quickly. But the other thing that you had to come to an understanding, because the roster changes so much at this level, your audience changes.
Yeah.
So just for instance, the last time I broadcast a game, Eduardo Rivera, Peyton Tolley, and Brooks Brannon were all here. Now, when we broadcast this evening, they're gone. So whatever friends and family were listening from them are gone because they'll be listening and watching Portland. And now we've got their replacements. So, but yeah, you are cognizant of the fact that families are listening.
Well, and the one other thing, Pete, that Dan does such a great job is, and I don't know anything other than turn it on, turn it off. But he's social media, and so have booth cam that we always do, but also people get in touch with us as well. And one thing about it is you never know who's listening to you. Dalton Rogers is from Flowood, Mississippi. Well, I wrote down Dalton Rogers is from Flowood, MS. Well, I'm Kansas. I just said Missouri, and they go, you be sure and tell that blankety blank blank idiot that he's from the great state of Mississippi and things like that. Chris Murphy was here, and Chris's dad Mike, who was always interacted with us, and he'd get back and forth with us. And we were telling the story one day, or I was telling the story one day about going on vacation with, got two daughters, and I was teaching them how to bowl. Go up and let it roll and, follow it and all that kind of stuff. Well, they both beat me, and and I didn't break 100. And one of my daughters asked me, "Hey, you want to put the bumper lanes up, Dan?" And so he thought that was kind of funny. And, so we had that kind of interaction with a lot of the folks that watch and listen to us. We try to have fun with the stories we tell.
And you become part of the family. When we come back, guys, we're going to go through some of the better ball players you've seen come through the Red Sox system in Greenville in the years you've been doing it, going back to last decade. And Dan, you and I are going to go down memory lane. We're going to relive the time you brought a sports tradition from your home state down this way, a celebratory sports tradition from the Mountain State. I think we're going to have a lot of fun talking about that, too. As we continue on, Dan Scott, Tom Van Hoy of the Greenville Drive, and we're back after this. We welcome you back. We're talking with the guys who call the action for the Greenville Drive on MILB TV, and also there's an audio stream. And if you're familiar with that website, you've been there before, no doubt. Dan Scott is on the right side of your screen, Tom Van Hoy to Dan's right. So, guys, back to late last decade is when you took over full time. Calling drive games. That was right around the time, it was a little bit after Mookie Betts had been here, because whenever you think of the Greenville Drive, I'll always think of Anthony Rizzo, Mookie Betts, and I know I'm leaving some guys off the list. And we've had a bunch of rehab players come through as well. But Dan, let's start out with you. Some of the memorable players that you've seen in a Red Sox organization that has had so many guys go up to the next level, and Rafael Devers and Xander Bogaerts pop into mind. But Dan, start out with you, then Tom, some of the guys that you've been impressed with in the time you've been doing the games.
Yeah, I think that for me, probably the first two that come to mind will be Tristan Casas, who had won the starting first base job last year and then unfortunately blew his knee out early this season, expected to come back next year. Brian Bayo, who is in the Red Sox rotation right now, is another young man that comes to mind. And, you can start going down the list of all the players we've seen who have made it. But one of the more interesting couple of games that we had here was opening day, I think, in 2019, and the day after when Dustin Pedroia was in here on a rehab assignment, and just the crowd and the way he interacted with everybody in the clubhouse, and the people down there at the time, they could not speak highly enough of what a pro Dustin Pedroia was. I'll let Tom take it with some of the other players, but Casas and Bayo are two that jump out to me.
Well, when Pedroia was here, and I remember you were here that day too, Pete, doing the interview with him, there were 7,515. At that time, it was the largest crowd that they'd had here at Fluor Field. But I don't even think he got a base hit, but he played second base for a little bit, and you just knew that he was a major league player. When Jaron Duran came through here in 2018, he was only here 30 games. You knew he had an opportunity. When Roman Anthony came through here, and he was here for 40 games, I believe, you knew that as well. It took a little bit of time for Marcelo Meyer when he was here to do that. And one of the guys that we really liked was Sinan Rafaela, who played center fielder, also played shortstop, and made some of the greatest catches and plays we've seen, and what he was able to accomplish as well. And you can kind of go on down the line. And the interesting thing about Rafaela was, he gets $10,000 to sign an international free agent. And at one point, I think the infield for the Drive at that time between short and second base had signed for like $10 million. So you never know what's going to go on. And it's really interesting with the international players that come through here that sign at the age of 15 or 16 years of age. And these guys are all 19, 20, maybe a little bit older than that, and the shoes I have on right now are older than they are, and give it another decade, they may come back into style.
Well, and Cedon Rafaela, who was here, I think in 2021 or 22, opening day, I asked Iggy Suarez, who was the manager then, who's a player to watch for, who is somebody maybe under the radar, and Rafaela was the name that he mentioned. And before Rafaela was called up to Double-A about the midway point of that season, he hit for the cycle in a game here. Still the last Drive player to hit for the cycle, and he did it what do they call it, where you do it in order, single, double, triple, home run?
Oh, it's not an albatross, but it's something like that. I think it's just maybe anyway, a consecutive cycle.
There's the albatross right there.
Yeah.
But Rafaela, he was outstanding here as well.
It's funny when you mention all these guys' names. We had Eric Jarinko, the fine now general manager, former PR guy with the Drive, and he's been there since the start back in 2006. When I had him on, about 10 years ago, we did a story. At the time, it was like 40 guys had come through Greenville that eventually got to the major leagues, either with the Red Sox or somebody else. And I said, so Eric, it's up around, within the time we're taping this, it was probably within the last month that we had Eric on. And I said, so it's well over 50 now, up in the 60s. He said 125 guys in the, and this is the 20th celebration season here in 2025. So that's pretty impressive how many guys you've seen come through. Something that I find really interesting, and this opened my eyes, so you guys know this, folks, a lot of viewers may, some may not, but I've actually had the honor to start calling some minor league games this year myself with the Spartanburgers, and I'd done a bunch of college baseball as you guys had, and something that just caught me on the very first game I did back in April. First, the sound of the bat, because the different sound in college, nothing like the wood bat. And there is a difference in speed. So what I want to ask you guys is some of the differences that you see, because we think, minor league baseball, high A, some of these guys are 2 or 3 years into their pro careers. I've noticed just difference in just quickness, maybe how the ball is fielded or whatever. What are some of the things, Dan, first, and you, Tom, that you notice the difference in guys at this level, professionals, as opposed to the players who are a year away or 2 years away from getting to this level back in the college ranks?
Well, what's interesting is that we have seen a couple of players, Christian Campbell among them, although he's back in AAA now, but we've seen guys go from here and be in the big leagues in less than 2 years. And Campbell was one of them. And, you can tell, even the untrained professional scout eye that Tom and I, we're not scouts, but they're just guys that are different. The ball sounds different coming off the bat, the way that they go about their business, fielding the ball, throwing the ball. There's just something different. And when they get to this level, then they're expected to really start elevating those skills. Now those expectations may be tempered a little bit because, going back, 4 or 5 years ago, in the infinite wisdom of our commissioner, they did away with the short season minor leagues. So got rid of 42 teams. And so the development, some say it's accelerated. I think it's been, it's slowed down a little bit, but by the time they get here, they're not expected to stay here for a full season if they're one of the top prospects.
Yeah.
And very rarely do they. And it's usually because they've got all those A++ skill sets.
Yeah, one of the things that the Latin players that come in here have kind of a flair, and there's a difference between those that sign when they're 16, 17 years old, and even when some of the Americans sign coming out of high school as well. The collegiate players, it's got a little bit more to that to a certain extent because of the level of play. College baseball, they're a little bit older when they come in here. I think one of the things, and Dan and I could go on forever, you don't have enough time, the difference between the college and the pro game and the way it's played, developmental versus some other situations there. But I think from a catching standpoint, the Latin players maybe call a little bit better game. We had a player here a couple of years ago that looked over to the dugout as a catcher and waited for the sign and said, because that's what you do in college baseball is you look over there and you get the call and learn how to call the game. But just from that standpoint, even when you come up from Salem, it's a little bit different. They're low A up to high A, a little bit better pitchers, maybe a little bit faster, and they will throw more than just the fastball, things like that. So there is an adjustment, and sometimes you forget that these are, in many cases, they're really young guys.
It's a very good point, and it's interesting. Greenville has gone through it. Asheville and Hub City is first year, obviously, organization, but this was low A, or single A, as they say, the South Atlantic League. And, of course, it flipped with the Carolina League. So for a while, we were seeing maybe a different kind of player come through, and now we're seeing the highest level of high A. It's a big point. So, Tom, I don't know if you were associated with Dan back when a little nugget happened that I got to be privy to. So Dan did a talk show for many years. Coincidentally, on a radio station at the time, Dan, was called The Drive, and then you end up calling games for a team called The Drive. It's now The Roar. But Dan, coming from the state of West Virginia, they just won a big bowl game. I'm going to be honest with you, Dan. I can't remember what year it was. I know it was
it was a Sugar Bowl, and they were playing Georgia.
Yep. So
the Georgia fans were just they were just incensed that they were insulted to have to play a team like West Virginia.
Yeah.
And this is when Rich Rodriguez was there the first time, and he really had things rolling.
Yep.
And, I took it for a while. It's all good nature, but I took it for a while. And I said one day, and I believe the caller's name was Troy from Easley. I don't know why I still remember that. But I said, you know what? Not only is West Virginia going to win the game, but when they do, we're going to burn a couch, because that's what West Virginia fans do on the Sunnyside district when they win a big game.
Move away from
So lo and behold, West Virginia beats Georgia in the Sugar Bowl. And so following through on the promise, we turned it into a fire safety event. We did it out in the back. There was a field behind the radio station at that time. And somebody brought us an old couch, and they had spray painted it red and black Georgia colors. And we got a bunch of Georgia paraphernalia and put it on the couch. And then I remember asking whoever the Clemson fire chief at the time was, I said, do we need to stick some newspaper under there, or do we need to pour some gasoline on it or something? He said, no. He put a little piece of paper under there. He set fire to that piece of paper. And literally in less than 60 seconds, the entire thing was engulfed in flames. And while we were having fun with it, we had a chance to make a point. Don't fall asleep smoking a cigarette on your couch.
Yep.
Because people have died doing that.
Yeah.
But the rapidity in which that thing went up was amazing. And somewhere I've got some grainy video of it.
Well,
if I can find
shot
I'll share it with you.
I was there to shoot it. Remember, you let me know about it. I came over. I'll never forget it. And I thought, I don't want to get too close to this. This is going to get pretty hot. But I vividly remember that thing I couldn't believe how quickly it caught fire. But you did this during your show.
Yeah, we did it live on the air, which is great radio.
Yeah. And so visually, I was able to get the visual out of it because I showed it on the news that night. But I thought it was good because, while that was going on, and I think maybe you played the West Virginia fight song underneath it.
Oh, yeah, we did everything we could to stick it to the Georgia fans.
But you got the message out of, hey, we're showing that, how dangerous. So it was good. That was the good radio part of it. You got the public service announcement out there. So
right.
That was cool.
Yeah, that was back in the days really before you had a lot of webcam live streaming video and studio and stuff. So I guess that's one thing, Tom, that would put your broadcasting skills, your radio broadcasting skills. We were the eyes of the audience.
Exactly. Yeah.
But
I remember it well. Fun. You told me that. I had worked in West Virginia for a year, many years before that. Mm-hmm. Had never seen that happen. The one year I covered them, they went 4-7, and it was during a time when they were pretty good. It was just a bad year in the middle of some good ones. But anyway, I thought, you know what? I like the unique, and that was unique. But I wanted to bring that up in our conversation. Want to thank you guys so much for having an opportunity to join us, taking the time and giving us the opportunity to visit with you. Good luck the rest of the season with the Drive. I know you do a great job, and I know that you might have a fun team there in the second half as well.
Well, that's the plan. We hope so. We're just two old guys who love baseball. I often call us the Stadler and Waldorf of minor league baseball broadcasting because everybody who comes through here is decades younger than us, right?
I'm not sure this is a good look, though, Pete. We have booth cam and everything.
Well, it was a lot of fun, guys. Good luck the rest of the way. You can catch them on the MILB TV and audio stream. Doing the Drive, Dan Scott, Tom Van Hoy. Thanks so much, guys. We'll see you soon. And for those of you tuned in today, thanks so much for watching, and we'll see you next time.